I'm Matthew, and I'm reading an excerpt from my book. So this is a sci-fi novel, and it's 200 years in the future, and we have like a back to nature kind of thing going on because humanity's kind of diverged away from like where they should be, really. And what we have is Homo sapiens, and we also have phytosapiens, which have green skin, and they get their energy from the sun. They don't eat. And so here we have one phytosapien and 3 humans, and the phytosapien is passing. He's trying to front like he's a human, so he's being low key, like he's got DNA change, so his skin's kind of like not green. He's kind of shady, but he's trying to be back to nature. That's his whole groove. Like he's trying to be like, trying to get into like being on Earth, So here we are. They're flying, and we're going to a party. They quickly and easily reached the roomy, climate-controlled taxi waiting at Sharp Top and climbed inside. Magusta and Yuniki sat directly across from Space Rock and Simba, who was exceptionally happy that the girls suggested eating high in the sky. They were shortly enjoying breakfast at 10,000 meters, far above the sun-blocking weather system. Yuniki even argued for them to fly slowly to the Virginia border in order to arrive in Damascus before Jay and Landis. "It smells so good in here," uniquely randomly pronounced before taking a bite of a blueberry muffin. "I know, I'm pretty sure it's Mr. Simba over there." Magusta looked at Space Rock. "Do a quick nose test for us." Space Rock laughed and confirmed that Simba smelled pretty good. He then sniffed under his own arms and coughed. "I guess I'm just not meant to smell as fresh as Simba." "Are you saying that you're destined to be a stinky poo, my spacey poo?" Uniquely laughed, and Magusta snorted along with her, suggesting that they should have ordered a shower taxi. "Oh man, not that destiny stuff again." Space Rock shook his head. "That dude Jay, he got tweaked last night." "Funny you say that," Magusta nodded knowingly. "When he puts on a show with Landis, they bring so much energy to the party." "They are totally amazing together," Uniquely excitedly added. Right. But when Jay isn't performing, he can't just seem to control his energy or his anger very well." And Magusta sighed, "He always has to be right about everything." "Maybe," Space Rock suggested mischievously, "he was destined to be on stage performing and nothing else." "And it's true," Simba stated. Simba's the Phyto, right? So he's down with this. Like DNA, dance, circumstances at birth, and an infinite number of other things determine outcomes of any given situation. "Except when I raise both hands," Uniquely finished off a donut and tossed her long arms in the air with a laugh. No. Magusta shook her head emphatically. "You're proving I'm right by trying to do something that proves you have free will." "What are you even talking about?" Uniquely gasped. "Yeah, that makes sense." Space Rock sipped on a coffee and leaned back. He looked up in the titanium teardrop grid into the clear atmosphere above their heads. "You wouldn't have raised your hands if we hadn't been talking about this very subject." "He's right," Simba said, trying his best to appear disinterested. "Consider that all you believe and know, and consider how radically different you act if you believed and knew different." "Oh, right." Uniquely looked at Space Rock and Simba, not sure if she understood. "Is this what that Phyto dude was trying to mathematically figure out?" asked Space Rock. "Sort of. The math was largely based on some of the object avoidance formulas developed for the early pro-gravity drives." The girls looked on intently, and Space Rock was quiet, so Simba continued. "Action is illusion. All of what we call actions are simply a perpetual chain of reactions. People define themselves by their reactions and imagine they have free will, but as the timeline progresses, there is a compression of choices in the ever-evolving present. The math proves that there is a continuous tension as options available continually decay into the past, while future options are continually anticipated and assembled and put together based on what did or didn't happen before. So the 4D reality we experience has been described as a good enough universe that presents the appearance of free will. But what the phytoscientists have figured out is that there's an infinitely small number of options with any given time period." "But if you're talking about options, then there are choices," Space Rock stated haltingly. Magusta nodded in agreement. "Yeah, but not exactly. See, the compression model takes any slice of time that we would call the present, and as shown by the asymptotic aperture theorem of time, proves that it can be known what will happen with virtual certainty with a powerful enough computer, of course, and we just don't have that kind of computer. So what do you mean by asymptotic? Asked Space Rock. Damn, Spacey, use your CAD. So Uniquely's eyes flashed while searching the internet. I found it, she announced, and then recited mechanically, asymptotic, of or relating to an asymptote. Glad we got that cleared up, queried Space Rock. Simba rolled up the arms of his t-shirt to expose as much of himself to the sun as possible and leaned back in the reclining chair, his face pointed skyward. The taxi slowly moved beyond the weather system, drenching the southern half of North Carolina, but none of the occupants inside noticed. Oh, duh, now I got it. Uniquely linked her CAD to the taxi display. Look, she motioned toward the holograph, which read, asymptote, a straight line advanced upon by a given curve as one of many variables in the calculation of that curve as it approaches infinity. I'm glad we got that cleared up, quipped Space Rock again. Uniquely scrolled to reveal more definitions, one of which was accompanied by a graph. This one makes sense, she said, pointing to the text. Asymptote, a line always approaching some curve, but never meeting it. Search images for 2D asymptotic aperture theorem, Simba said to the computer. Within seconds, the taxi computer drew up several graphs. I totally forgot you can ask the taxi computer. Magusta shook her head and peered at the graphs. But what does all this mean? Yeah, I don't get it, Space Rock said, pointing at converging but separate lines. So this is supposed to be time, and this is supposed to be space. And down here we have the reaction of sentient beings, but doesn't that minuscule space labeled the present between the two lines allow for choice? Looks like wiggle room to me, announced Uniquely. That space is too small to wiggle anything in, though. So what you're saying is that free will is too small to fit there? Space Rock frowned. That just sucks. That space is called free fill, and it only allows for, Magusta shook her head. I'm not getting it. Why can't we do more than what that chart shows? What becomes possible and impossible both increases and decreases with the progression of time at rates more or less equal to each other, as you can see in the chart. But what you can react to at any instant is infinitely limited by an infinite number of variables. See, what is possible or impossible at any given moment does not exactly correlate, but restrictions contract down infinitely close to zero at the present, or what we call the present. So what that means is that we are forever limited by the ideas and tools immediately at hand when we react. Uniquely shook her head. The trail's been here a long time. We wanted to go hiking, so we came out. Yeah, me and the boys, we did our show in Atlanta, and we wanted to get away from it all, so why can't they be called free will? If you'd been around 400 years ago, would you have wanted to come hiking here? Of course not. The trail didn't exist, did it? And besides, the music, it would have been different. We wouldn't have flown. Okay, will you be able to hike the Appalachian Trail 400 years from now? And Magusta paused to think. As a result, the taxi's computer interpreted the question and initially returned a null value, but recalculated a projection that trended 99.99999% negative. Uniquely was confused. That's dumb. Who knows if the trail is going to be here or not? Space Rock laughed. No, the computer's totally right. We'll be dead. We wouldn't have been alive hundreds of years ago either, so what's the point? That's exactly the point. Take a closer look at the chart. You're asymptotically guaranteed to react only to an asymptotically limited number of events at any given instant. You could not have reacted to things if you hadn't been born yet, or if they happened after you died. And since time is infinite in length, then the ability to react at all is infinitely small, even before we begin accounting for variables beginning at an individual's creation. We all say we wanted to be out hiking, but we could only do so because the trail was here. No matter what we do or where we go, we find ourselves compressed between the past and the present to what is essentially an infinite degree. He paused and spoke to the computer. Search, 3D asymptotic aperture fractal, animated. A second later, the taxi's holographic display extended and deepened, loading a fractal representation of the theorem, which began undulating rhythmically as it wrapped itself over and around an infinite timescale. It's gorgeous, whispered Magusta. For the first time, Space Rock accessed his CAD. Yo, I totally need to save this on my crystal, he said. Yeah, me too. Uniquely downloaded the graphic from the taxi and turned to Simba. So what did you call this again? It's the asymptotic aperture fractal. It's the fractal pattern that graphically represents the math proving deterministic reactions constitute reality in this universe. So what's going to happen? Uniquely asked, mesmerized by the animation. Well, duh, we're going to die. Space Rock picked up a muffin and took a small bite while he stared at the heaving, churning mathematical diagram. No, stupid, I mean in the future. It's not a time machine. And anyway, the variables necessary to model the future are much too great, even for a stack of those really advanced Fido computers. Simba stared at the whirling fractal for a moment. I think some Fidos tried to model the future, but their experiments failed beyond a few seconds as the variables grew exponentially. They were attempting to create the opposite of this asymptotic compression model. That's why we debate and deliberate over decisions, because knowledge of every possible variable can't be known. And it's why the Fido model failed. Adding the deterministic properties of more than a few events always caused the whole simulation to crash. At least, that's what I heard. Yeah, but Fidos are crafty bastards, Magusta said, tearing her eyes away from the endlessly twisting fractal graphic. I bet they'll get it at some point. I heard the plants even have some kind of new gravity drive and some kind of super advanced computer stuff, but who knows what they're really up to. Hey, maybe that's why the taxi computer gave us that tiny chance of hiking in 400 years, chuckled Space Rock. It factored in a tiny chance that the Fidos will crash land some time machine, and then we'll use it to go hiking in 2597 and enjoy all the badass technological advancements they've developed. His face sobered up, though. Hey, but wait a minute. I thought math was absolute. Now, how come this asymptote stuff isn't 100%? The statistical analysis has been determined, pardon the pun, to be asymptotic because reality isn't perfect. Accidents happen and a certain amount of statistical background noise is present because people can go crazy. But once those variables are accounted for and incorporated into the equations, the math works. So there's two thought experiments that Fido has developed on this, the vacuum quandary and the lucky dart. Ooh, lucky dart. Tell us that one. Is that like Cupid? Magusta batted her eyes at Simba. No, that would be lucky arrow, stupid, and I have a vacuum quandary since I don't like cleaning, remarked uniquely as she took Space Rock's muffin wrapper and tossing it into a disposal duct. She took off her cap and rubbed her ear. So tell us the vacuum one. What about a vacuum dart to help with the cleaning? Space Rock stroked his beard, imagining his help to be rather clever. Shut up, Spacey Poo, and let Simba get to it. Simba looked out the window towards the ground. Regarding the random allelic arrangements and birth circumstances that initially established so much about us, Fido's example involved a blindfolded individual throwing a dart towards the Earth from the moon. The dart travels many thousands of kilometers, is captured by gravity, falls towards Earth, and impacts. When we claim to have hit that specific impact spot on purpose, we are claiming we have free will. He wanted to change the subject. He pointed down towards Damascus. Hey, over there. The girls turned to look out the glass taxi canopy. Magusta told the taxi to descend and uniquely turned inward away from the glass. It seems kind of depressing, she said, not being able to choose things. Yeah, maybe not. Space Rock's eyes flashed. I just downloaded the bio of the guy who talked about this, and he said, a century ago you own nothing. A century from now you own nothing. A happier life is lived when this is acknowledged. And I guess it's true. I mean, it seems true to me. Yeah, Simba looked up. That particular quote is what inspired me to ask if you'd been hiking hundreds of years ago. The taxi floated down to the small aerodrome just outside Damascus, Virginia, not unlike the ones they had arrived at atop Springer Mountain when they started hiking. Simba paid the fare to the profuse expressions of thanks from his fellow hikers. They disembarked into the hazy early afternoon sun to find that the aerodrome shelter was deserted and made their way towards a disturbance in the center of town. And that's it.